Please tell me I'm
You asked me to debunk this video, so I did. Hi, I'm Rob Morty. I debunk videos need to be debunked. So, what can we see?
please tell me I'm reading this wrong.
You are absolutely reading this wrong, but let's see what you wanted to say anyway.
Gosh, it says we too learn in the following. I don't know how to say that word. That there is
You don't know the word and you don't know what you're reading because you're not reading from the Aramaic, you're reading from a translation. You don't know the difference between the dark letters and the light letters, but that's way too complicated. We're not getting into it now. Let's just say for now, you have to know the difference between case law, binding authority, and persuasive authority. Let's see what it says.
significance to an act of intercourse with a girl less than 3 years old. A girl 3 years and 1 day old can be betrothed via sexual intercourse. This is in the Talmud, guys. This is what your rabbis are learning. This
Not only rabbis, the truth is we're all supposed to learn it. And if you're talking about the irreligious and the saying their rabbis learn it, well, okay, that's true. We learn it. Guilty. But what are we actually learning? What does it actually say? In the same exact tractate before, it says that there is no more levirate marriage. They're sending her away called chalitza. The Talmud in Brachos that says if you walk behind a woman in the marketplace, you have to run in front of her. You're not allowed to look at her. You're not allowed to stare at her here. You're not allowed to even look at her clothing. You can't smell her perfume. You can't talk to her unless it's engaged in business in the marketplace. You can't be frivolous. You shouldn't look at her. You shouldn't even stare at her pinky because men and women have to be separate. This same Talmud does not get any credit. Instead, everyone likes to point to the other ones and take it out of context. Let's get to our portion. This is not a beginning portion. This follows other portions. So what is the previous portion talking about? It's talking about whether or not marriages that are consummated, whether they have legal effect. It goes through several different ones, including whether priests can marry certain people, etc. Now it's talking about a levirate marriage. And it's saying in a levirate marriage, which is brought down in the Torah, there's an obligation on a brother to marry the widow of his brother if she did not have any children with him. The question is, now that she presents and he wants to do the marriage, when can he do it? So the answer is he can't do it until she's 12 years old, because back then, 2,000 years ago, the age of marriage was puberty. And as early as a couple hundred years ago, 13 and 14-year-olds were commonly married to each other. As a matter of fact, the United States, there were some states, that could be even today, but at least there were, that 14 years old was the age for marriage. Okay. I also point out that if you want to find anything bad in case law, you could just look up any case and look up these sites, and you'll find all these crazy case laws about people trying to marry young girls, people trying to be with them, whether it's not criminal punishment, all that stuff. So when you're looking into case law, sure, you will find cases. A brisa is something that never made it into the Mishnah. The Mishnah is law, the Torah is law, but the Talmud is a case law discussion of the law, and it is not law in and of itself. It discusses and explains the Mishnah. A brisa is a rule that went around that never made it into the Mishnah, therefore it's not law. It's called persuasive authority, and it's used sometimes so we can learn certain principles out. What are we trying to learn from here? Let's look at the Talmud. Amar Rava. Rava says, singular opinion, Afana nami tanine. We also learned, besides all the other marriages that we just learned, that if he tries to consummate it in a certain way, it still has no legal status. She is 3 year old, and one day, and he wants to do engagement with intercourse, and we know that from a different tractate that there are 3 ways to do engagement, and he wants to do it through the consummation. The imbala yavam, if he goes ahead and uses that for yibum, so then kana, it sticks. In other words, legally it has status. Whether or not he should be punished for that, that we could look at Kesubis that says people who are with minor children get punished and they can get the death penalty. We also look at Sanhedrin that says that if a person tries to seduce or go onto any man or woman, child or otherwise, we could actually chase them down and kill them. And of course, the Torah says that if a person goes against someone who's not the age of consent or forces a woman who is the age of consent, he gets killed. That's not what the tractate is talking about. The tractate wants to know a very specific question. What happens if this case happens where a girl is 3 years and 1 day and the brother, for whatever reason, maybe he's 10 years old. He could be a 10-year-old. And he's overzealous. He says, well, I have to do this according to the Torah. And he tries to consummate the marriage this way. does she have any legal status? Then what happens is when this girl gets older, okay, now she's an adult, now she's 20 years old. And then the Talmud continues. And then someone else has engages with her, another adult engages with her while she's an adult, or her actual husband, in other words, the new husband, the brother, who is now also an adult, and she's also an adult. Remember, she's 20 years old, and now she's in her menstrual cycle, and he engages in her relations. What's the legal status? That's the question of this Talmud. It has nothing to do with allowing a 3-year-old, heaven forbid, to ever get married. The question is, if this happened, and you know what? Unfortunately, the Talmud had to deal with things because people in the world are sick, and yes, and there could be a situation in the world where a 10-year-old, for whatever reason, decides he's going to do lever marriage on his sister-in-law because the Torah says he has to because he died without children, and before anyone knows it, he tried to engage with her, and now what's the legal status of her? If, let's say, he doesn't touch her ever for the rest of his life, and then she comes an adult, and some other man tries to marry her, is she married? What's the rule? What's the rule? You tell me. Forget about the fact that now he gets punished if he was an adult and he did something with knowledge, or he gets put in a mental institution. That's irrelevant. The question is, if it happened, what is the legal status? Does someone now get killed for adultery because when she's 20, he had relations with her, because when she was 3 in a day, her brother-in-law, who was 10 years old, didn't know what he was doing? That's what the Talmud is saying. Any questions, let me know.